let's talk about the Oregon win. Oregon goes on the road. They're in the horseshoe. They were a 14 and a half point dog going into that game. And what was the storyline as we did our preview? The storyline, at least from my standpoint, was Ohio State has too many dudes. Oregon looked like crap against Fresno. Anthony Brown has a lot of cleanup work to do. He may not be the guy. Kayvon Thibodeau might be out. Like all these things that seemingly were going against the Oregon Ducks. And then they go into that game, and it was almost like a completely different team. And I saw, if people didn't see, go on out to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheSolidVerbal, and you can see Dan's immediate post-game reaction, which was very emotional. And you were almost without words, Dan. Walk me through what the hell happened here.
So Oregon won. Oregon won the game. They absorbed some major passing yardage from CJ Stroud, who I know Ohio State fans may be somewhat down on because he did miss some big opportunities and obviously threw a pick that helped to seal things at the end, but he still threw for almost 500 yards on a very talented, albeit beat up, notably up front defense, and that's what you should do if you're an excellent quarterback. And yes, he missed spots, whatever, and Chris Olave is probably the best receiver in college football, at least right now. So what Oregon did is they won emphatically up front. They David Pollocked Ohio State. Without Justin Flo, who led the team in tackles last week, a 5-star first-year starter at linebacker. He was hurt all of last year. And obviously without Kayvon Thibodeau, who was a 50-50 going into the game kind of thing, but couldn't go. And he was their gravitational player defensively. That requires so much attention from every offensive line. Oregon won on both sides of the ball. They beat Ohio State up on the ground. We saw those plays where, a wide receiver, a tight end would sort of smash a linebacker, and both Travis Dye and CJ Verdell had scoring plays basically untouched. A leading offensive lineman, a leading blocker, was untouched as well at certain points. And so what Joe Moorhead was able to do against the Ohio State defense, Kerry Combs,
I told you about Joe Mo against Ohio State. I told you.
Well, I mean, Penn State fans were also saying beware of Joe Mo packing it in the fourth quarter, though, at the same time. There was that element to it as well. And so, I was ecstatic when Oregon hired Joe Moorhead. I was just worried about the pairing with Anthony Brown. And we even saw as good a performance from Anthony Brown as we could have hoped, but that also includes almost no bigger stretching plays to wide receivers. There were big passes and big moments to tight ends. Obviously, he hit CJ Verdell with passes that kept drives going, 3rd and 6s that, extended the play or moved the chains. But really, it was a story of Oregon with a very specific game plan that didn't, and they took a couple shots to receivers deep, but that's not what Anthony Brown necessarily succeeds doing. He doesn't necessarily have that touch in that game. So I thought Joe Moorhead, I thought the game plan was excellent. And I largely thought the game plan was pretty sound from Ohio State. They just missed a couple of shots. And you saw that 4th and 1 stop from Noah Sewell in a big moment. I thought Oregon's run fits on defense, especially given how beat up they were. Down a couple linebackers. They had to move a freshman safety to linebacker. They were playing a walk-on linebacker in the second half in a huge game. Like, they were really down on defense. And I thought the focus and ready-to-play-edness, not an adjective, was outstanding. And we were on Big Boy Bets. Jeff Schwartz mentioned that he was taking the points just because Oregon is not demonstrably worse than anybody in these huge spots, maybe outside of like a fully weaponized Alabama, but we haven't seen it. But this is an Ohio State team with a new starting quarterback, with a defense that we've seen the last couple of years, or last year specifically, show itself to be more vulnerable. I was watching that game thinking, thank God Chase Young is not lining up today. Thank God the timing worked out.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State really couldn't get to Anthony Brown. I thought Oregon's offensive line did a really good job in both phases. And there were some penalties that were sort of, I don't know how angry Ohio State fans are over that Chris Olave non-call PI in the end zone. It didn't really look like he made an attempt at the ball. To me, it looked like he was trying to sell a flop. Ohio State had its opportunities. Ohio State down 2 touchdowns in the second half had me thinking. I was texting with our pal Ari Wasserman. 65-35, Ohio State wins this game because I'm just not confident if Anthony Brown has to drive the field and needs 7 to convert for Oregon. I just was not confident in that moment, but Oregon came out of it making big plays in big moments and coming up with stops, and obviously that interception was was pretty much the dagger there. But yeah, Oregon on the ground went with what worked. We saw the explosive touchdown from CJ Verdell early on in the second half, and they hung on. To me, it was a hang-on performance of upper magnitude, and came away quite impressed with the performance on the road.
Yeah, you'll take it in the horseshoe.
Yeah.
Ohio State, I agree, definitely softer on defense than you would hope for if you are a Buckeyes fan. We'll see how they try to fix that situation moving forward. But Oregon came in with a really good game plan. They looked solid. They were especially potent on the ground, and they were able to stave off that late effort from Ohio State to try and get back in this thing. You mentioned CJ Stroud. We got to play the sound, right?
Please.
484, 3 touchdowns and a pick in a losing effort. So he did all he could. He did miss some throws. Much like he did last week, and Joel Klatt mentioned it on the broadcast, CJ Stroud had a tendency to be high and long on some of his throws. And I think he's a good quarterback. He looks very comfortable in the pocket. He will eventually get that tuned in. There's a very crowded quarterback room at Ohio State. I don't know if that creates any controversy
500 yards, nearly, against a pretty good Oregon defense. Yeah.
So big win for Oregon on the road again, 35-28. They emerged from week 2 as an undisputed Pac-12 / playoff contender. We'll see where it goes from here. Ohio State.
On to Stony Brook. 1-0 against Stony Brook. That's all we're concerned about here, Ty. That's all we're concerned about. Hey, thanks for watching. Consider, if you haven't, subscribing to the channel and hitting that little bell to be alerted, and listening to the podcast at solidverbal.com.